Germany, and as some involvement in Switzerland, and also what's been going on in Sweden, because the monetary reform groups in Europe are in close contact with each other. So Manuel, he's up on the website, put him up last night, and so you can read a bit of his background there, and all the proceedings of the conference will be up on the website the next day or two, and and then Manuel's also going to be giving a talk later on today, this afternoon, about his experience with cryptocurrencies, and that's why I'm sort of bringing this question in. And we're also going to have a legal expert from Chicago here, a big law firm in Chicago that represents cryptocurrency people on the commodities markets here in Chicago. And so it's an interesting area, and I think it's got a lot of potential. I've been looking into it the last year, and yeah, well, like I said, it's like an asset. It's like sovereign money in a way, except it's issued by groups of people. It's not, well, it depends what we call sovereign. If people talk about personal sovereignty, the people who are in that industry are very big on personal sovereignty. So. Okay, so here, please give a warm welcome. Oh, you're just setting up your slides. Yeah. And then later on, we're going to have, well, you've got the program in front of you, but we've got some other great speakers coming. Bill Bergman, he's from the organisation Truth in Accounting, but before that, he's come to a few of our conferences, and he was actually an economist for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And, well, he might want to tell the story, you might want to ask him, but he was like a whistleblower, and he paid the price for it, and he didn't get protection, and so he's really like an unsung hero. So yeah, he's one of those people who's very brave, and stood up to power. So now, are you ready, Manuel? Yeah. Thank you very much. Please welcome Manuel Klein from Monetative in Germany.
Do the lights. We got no lights. Lights here. Guys in the dark.
I can use that. Okay, I'll use that one. There it is. Does it work? Maybe to start with that, Mike. Thanks for the warm welcome. I already spoke with some of you yesterday. Some of you already know me, maybe. So my name is Manuel. I come from Germany, from Frankfurt, and I am for 2.5 years now part of, or member of the board of Monetative. Monetative is an NGO of Germany. It's based in Berlin, and I'll just give a quick background of what is happening in Germany and what is happening in Europe. So starting off with Monetative, it was founded back in 2012. One of the founders was Professor Joseph Huber. I guess that name is quite, or you are familiar with that name. I was lucky to work quite often together with Joseph Huber in the last couple of years. And it's a very inspiring person. It's he's very intelligent, of course, but also very, yeah, you can get along with him quite well. So that's what I like a lot with him. And the Monetative, the NGO, basically hosts several events each year. One of them is the annual event. I organized the last 2 annual events in Frankfurt. Before that, we had annual events every time in Berlin. But we decided that since Frankfurt is the center or the capital of Germany, and one of the capitals of capital in Europe, it would be a good idea to have these events in Frankfurt, actually. And yeah, so we have the annual event, and this event is meant to be, or this event targets, so to say, those people that are not already members of the organization. So we try to reach out and talk to other interested people that are not yet participating in the NGO. And then we have the Vollgeldwochenende, which is like the sovereign money weekend. And this is an event especially for all the members. We have around 150 members. And so we discuss internally, we have workshops, we try to reach out to the members and say, hey, why don't you participate? Why don't you do a workshop? And it's always been quite interesting, and we have had very interesting discussions there. One of the most successful things we have accomplished, so to say, is a consultation of a German bank. I can say that it's also been a little bit of my work because I did an internship in that bank. It's a very interesting bank. It's called GLS Bank. It's one of the local and regional banks in Germany, but it's one of the biggest there is. And it has a very strict focus on sustainable investment, on socially sustainable investment, on environmentally sustainable investment. So they have a very, very strict framework which forbids them to grant loans and therefore create money for investments not in the real economy. So that's basically the first thing. They only grant loans for the real economy, and then also only for socially and environmentally sustainable projects. So it's very interesting and quite good bank, actually. And I did an internship in the investment daughter, you could say, of the bank, and then I talked to one of the higher level managers there, and I said, okay, I found on your website an explanation and a description of how your bank operates. And there was this very basic explanation. The bank is like a bridge that is built between the savers and the investors, and so the savers' deposits are channeled to those that want to take out loans. I thought it would be best to use like a submarine tactic and not directly state that I'm from Monetative. So I confronted him with that and said, oh, I've read something else and I think this is outdated and everything like this. And yeah, he was quite open-minded and said, oh, I've heard this now, I think the 5th time, and maybe we should actually change something about that. So finally they decided that they go to a university, to an affiliated university, because it's this bank, it's like a special bank, comes from the anthroposophical, it has an anthroposophical background, and this university also has, so they always work together. And they said, oh, okay, why don't you do a study about our bank, which has the aim of finding out whether we create money or not. So they actually did it. They hired a PhD student. She already had her PhD, and she wrote a study about whether or not the bank is creating money. Sadly, the study was really, really bad. It was astonishing how bad it was, because I've read it, we all read it, and we couldn't believe how bad it was. I mean, there were different viewpoints, different theories, and it was all mixed up, and one time she said A, then she said B, and A and B were contradicting each other, so it was really weird. We didn't really understand it, and so Joseph Huber, me, and 2 other members of the NGO Monetative, we wrote a statement. What is false, and why the statement that they wouldn't create money is completely wrong. So there was quite a lot of debate with the bank, actually, and we consulted them how to better use the right explanation why they create money, and I mean, they're different from other banks. They can definitely state that we are different. Yes, we are a bank. Yes, we do create money, but we only create the money for good purposes, right?
What was the name of that bank again?
GLS Bank.
GLS.
Yes, yes. And yeah, but the CEO of the bank, I don't know, he didn't really buy our arguments and thought that we only wanted him to be pro-Folgeld, pro-sovereign money, which he isn't. However, this was not our intention. We only wanted the bank to state, yes, we are a bank, yes, we do create money. And I think, and I still believe that it would actually be quite helpful for them too, for their marketing, to actually educate their clients and their customers and their depositors, and actually have another argument for them, because they can use this argument. They can say, yes, we are a bank, and yes, we do create money, however, only for those good purposes. But at the end, they didn't really do it. They didn't really buy our arguments. However, they invited us to one of their huge events. They have a Geldgipfel, that's what they call, like a money event every 2 years, and they invited me and Joseph Huber, and we could talk. I held a presentation there, and afterwards this lady that did the study held a presentation, and afterwards the CEO. And then we sat together and had like a panel discussion. It was really interesting. There was a lot of attention from the guests there, a lot of good discussions afterwards. So yeah, we're still in touch with the German bank, with the GLS bank, and just some weeks ago we contacted them again because we recognized that all well, the study wasn't published anywhere, and also our statements to that study, our replies, you could say, they weren't published anywhere either, and this is quite sad actually. So we contacted them again, and the CEO also said, yes, okay, you could publish them on the website of Joseph Huber, and now they're online, so now they can be written, sadly only in German. But, so that was a major success, so to say. I mean, we weren't successful that the bank actually stated how they operate, but we were in very good contact with them, very good discussions at the event also. And in contrast, during the Swiss initiative, there was a Swiss bank, also an anthroposophical bank, and they did very, very, very good reports on how they create the money. It was very astonishing. And we also sent them to the GLS bank and said, hey, look, your sister organization states it completely right, and they actually did an awesome job. Those studies are very short, 3 studies, each of them only 4 pages, but they're really good, like really good graphics too, and yeah, but they still wouldn't do it.
Where are they available?
Excuse me?
Where are they available?
You can download them online, but it's also only in German, so.
That's kind.
Yeah, and another success was that we have had several talks with politicians, especially with Dr. Gerhard Schick. He's the deputy chairman of the finance committee of the Green Party. He just recently resigned from that position, stating that he really wants to change something in the financial sector, and doesn't really see how that is possible through the parliament, because he was a member of the German parliament, I think, for more than 10 years now. And he resigned and said, I'm going to create an NGO that is trying to change it from an NGO perspective, so to say. But he has always been quite open-minded and said, yes, there are some big advantages of sovereign money, but as his position as deputy chairman of the finance committee, of course, he could say, hey, why don't we do it? This is, I think, a little bit too much and too radical for normal politicians. However, he will attend our annual conference this year, and let's see how he changed his mind maybe now, since he resigned from that position. So that's basically a small overview about what we do at Monetative. We have, of course, other topics and issues that we were working on, but these are some remarkable topics. And then I wanted to share with you a small outlook to the annual event this year. Because what happened is, basically the first event that happened was I graduated from my master's in May. Then I saw and I thought, now I have the time, and actually for more than 4 years I'm really interested now in the structure and the flaws of the current money system. And to wrap all this up, I always wanted to have like a big conference, something to reach out, also show my professors that there is actually an issue with the current monetary system. Because I've had several discussions with professors during my career at university, and they all basically blocked. There was only one professor. I also worked at his chair. He was quite open-minded, didn't really believe me. But I mean, I did a presentation for him. It took like 3 hours, and we discussed a lot. And all his arguments luckily, I could downplay and say, no, I mean, there's something missing what you are thinking about. So he was quite open-minded, but the majority of the professors really blocked completely. There was one professor which almost got a little bit aggressive and said, oh, it's a waste of time, and like 99% of the economists believe this is not relevant, and so you shouldn't waste your time either. And I said some names, Michael Kumov, Derek Turner. Yeah, but no, don't believe them. And yeah, so it's been really frustrating sometimes at university. And even in my master's in finance, I've had lectures on banking and investment banking, so commercial banking and investment banking. And his first slide, every class I had, his first slide he put up was an overview about the investment banking sector and the commercial banking sector. And this slide basically said that it's basically the same. Both do the same, both are, so to say, secondary markets. They take existing money and lend it out. The commercial banking sector does it short term, and the capital markets do it long term. Then I asked him and said, oh, wait, but I think at the commercial banking sector, the money is being created in the bank, which can then be used in the capital market. He said, no. That's not true. That's not true. I said, yeah, but I've read a lot about it there. Then you should read some more, because that's not true. Stuff like that happened a lot. So that was my motivation, so to say, to really finalize everything up after my master's. Also, of course, this year is quite important and quite special, as it's the 10 years anniversary of the financial crisis, also the year of the referendum on Folget, and also, quite interestingly, the 10th anniversary of the Bitcoin protocol. Bitcoin was already invented in 2008 and went online in November 2008, I believe. So I was approached by a professor of Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, and I was already in touch with him since November last year. And when I finished my master's, he approached me and said, hey, I want to do this huge crypto conference, why don't you do the lead and do the project leading of all this huge event. I said, okay, why not? I mean, this is a good experience, I can do it. And then I talked to the other guys at Monetative and said, hey, wait, why don't we do a cooperation with Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, which has like a mainstream reach in Frankfurt, because it's like the institution for fintech, blockchain, and all that. Why don't I propose him to do like a big event that is also combining cryptocurrencies? And then we decided that it would be actually an interesting idea, and I asked the professor, and he was interested in that too. And then we decided that we should do it. And so on November 24th, we will have a huge conference in Frankfurt. I don't know if you are interested in coming to Germany, I can only invite you, and IMMR members. I mean, the IMI is also an IMMR member. Has a subsidized entry fee. It's subsidized by Monetative for €9 now. and I can show you the presentation at the website, because we have, I was really lucky, also with the help of Uli Korch at the back of the room here. Let's see, I think I have to stop that, so you can see it, yes. Because I was very, very lucky to have confirmations of quite renowned speakers. So that's the website, the conference framework. We're discussing the current money system, the structure and the flaws. I think also the structure, discussing the structure is still really important, as the majority of the people still don't know how the current money system actually works. Then we have talks about the flaws. Then we have the second session about sovereign money and Vollgeld, and the third one about cryptocurrency, so currency competition, Austrian economics, currency competition. Sadly, I couldn't find speakers for that. I approached a lot of speakers from the Mises Institute and other big speakers, Jesus Huerta de Soto, for example, and they all declined. I don't know why, but apparently nobody wants to talk why cryptocurrencies and currency competition should bring out a better monetary system. I don't know.
They just want gold.
Yeah, actually yes, you're right. A lot of people also from the Mises Institute say, yeah, Bitcoin is interesting, but actually it won't work because it's not backed by gold. But anyways, I mean, of course, we're not pro and we're not in favor of cryptocurrencies, even though the technology might be very interesting. But I think it's an interesting way of collecting more people and bringing the whole topic to more people. Yeah, you see here why attend, recap financial crisis. We have good keynote speeches and several sessions. And then here you see the speakers. So we have Thomas Mayer. He's been the former chief economist of Deutsche Bank in Germany. He's quite renowned for his articles at one of the leading newspapers in Germany, and he's been writing a lot about monetary reform. And also, even though he's an Austrian economist and says that currency competition would bring out the best money system, he was actually in favor of the Swiss Vollgeld initiative and wrote a lot about it and why he is in favor of it. So he's going to talk about why the euro actually needs sovereign money to survive. So this is going to be very interesting. We have Michael Kumhoff. I guess you're all familiar with him. He's going to talk twice. He's going to do the leading, the morning keynote about how the actual money system works. The title of his paper, so are banks really intermediaries of local funds? Then we have William White. He's the chief economist of the OECD, and he was the chief economist of the Bank of International Settlements, or the central bank of all central banks. I'm very happy that he will join us. Then we have Lawrence Koplikov. You may are familiar with him too. He's been writing a book, what was it called?
Jimmy Stewart is dead.
Jimmy Stewart is Dead, exactly, yeah. Where he proposes a system quite similar to what we are actually in favor of. And there was a big conference in Zurich this spring, and he was there and he held a keynote stating why I support sovereign money in really big letters. It was very impressive. He's going to join us via Skype. And then we have Peter Bofinger. He's advisor to, or he's part of the advisory team for the German government, actually. Quite famous in Germany too, quite renowned. So these are the keynote speakers, but during the sessions we have Miguel Ángel Fernández Ordóñez. He was the governor of the Spanish central bank and is now a supporter of sovereign money. And he approaches the whole topic from a different angle, because he says through sovereign money you can actually liberalize the whole banking and financial sector. And it's quite interesting, because I think he's right, because I was talking yesterday with some of you at the dinner. I believe that the current regulation of the banking system is just too detailed. They are hyper-regulated. We need other regulation and not this microprudential regulation. And so he says, if we had a sound money system, we could actually liberate a lot in the financial markets. Also, end the distinction between payment service providers and banks, commercial banks. So commercial banks would then get extreme competition through all the fintechs and all that, and might not even survive that. Because banks, especially the German banks, they don't really operate efficiently. So I've heard a talk of one of the managers of the informative and I don't know how you call it in English, the computing system and the computing sector of the German bank, of the Deutsche Bank. And he said they wanted to reform all the systems of the Deutsche Bank, but really couldn't do it because there were...
It's IT, information technology.
IT, exactly, yeah, it's IT, yeah. They couldn't do it because they didn't find people that could actually code the language anymore that the system is operating on. It's so old because it was set up in the 70s, and I don't know if you're familiar with IT a little bit, so you have basic layers and then you can put protocols on top of it, and the protocols that were written during the last decades all work on top of the basic foundation layer, and this layer was coded in the 70s. So they had to buy in their old workers that were already retired, had to pay them extreme sums of money, but really couldn't change the system. They tried to, they doubled the whole system. That's actually what happened at Deutsche Bank. They doubled the whole system and then wanted to change from the old one to the new one, and it blew up. It went completely wrong. The customers suddenly had double the amount of money in their account. Yeah. So they decided to, throw away all the tasks that have been done to, bring it to a new digital age, so to say, and wasted, I think, I don't know how many millions. So anyway, he's going to talk about liberalization of the banking and financial sector through sovereign money. Really interesting. Michael Komov again. He's going to talk about CBDC, his approach on CBDC. Then we have Steve Keen. I guess you're all familiar with him too. Central bank digital currency. So digital cash or digital currency. Steve Keen is going to talk about the effects of the money creation from the banking sector and on asset prices.
Where is he on sovereign money, Steve Keen?
He's been here before.
Yeah, I know. He's changed though.
I'm not sure. Agnostic? I think he likes to analyze the problems of the current money system, but doesn't really want to say how it's good. Then, of course, Joseph Huber. Gerhard Schick, I already talked about him, the deputy chairman of the finance committee of the Green Party. Ole Bjerg, also very interesting character from Copenhagen Business School. He's a young researcher, and he's put forth quite interesting research about sovereign money, but also on CBDC, so digital cash. And he's going to talk about that. Philip Sandner, that's the professor at Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, he has no idea of money and no idea of the monetary system. But he's interested in the technology, in blockchain technology. And he's going to talk about tokens, different types of tokens, because blockchain technology can be used for, I will talk about that later, but it can be used for any type of value transmission, so to say, or transaction. And money is just one application. He's going to talk about that. Then we have Jonathan Macmillan, he's one of the authors of the book, The End of Banking. I don't know if you have heard of it or if anybody has read it. I sadly haven't yet. However, I think it's really, really interesting because he says...
Everybody should read it.
Yeah, everybody should. Because what they do is they go beyond the commercial banking sector. They say that there has been extreme amounts of money creation in the shadow banking sector, and that the Vollgeld-Initiative in Switzerland and also our approach of sovereign money is actually not enough, because it's really easy to circumvent sovereign money due to money creation in the shadow banking sector. So he's going to talk about that. We have Max Reinley from the Competence Center. He's going to talk about why we should use cryptocurrencies, why cryptocurrencies should provide a better money system. This is going to be very interesting. Then Dr. Karl Clausen, he's one of the researchers of the e-krona project in Sweden. I'm going to quickly talk about that after the slides. I don't know if you're familiar with the e-krona project. It's a digital cash project of Sweden. Really interesting. I'm going to quickly come back to that afterwards. Norbert Herrling, journalist from the Handelsblatt in Germany, is going to talk about the new money world, because we see Alipay and Apple Pay and Facebook and Google Pay and all that. So this is a consolidation of the monetary system in the hands of some private corporations that are not banks. They can have banks too, and then they can grant loans. However, right now they're just payment providers, but due to very efficient technology and technological solutions they offer, also for example PayPal, a lot of people switch to those systems and use their tokens as money. And he's going to talk about that. Very interesting. Edgar Wortmann from Amsterdam, he's going to come to talk about the future of the monetary authority. Is it still going to be a central bank, or is it another type of structure that we should use in the sovereign money system? We have Emma Dorney and Maurizio De Giacomi from the Vollgeld-Initiative from Switzerland. They're going to talk about lessons learned, maybe comparable to what you've just heard. And, then we have two lawyers here. They have put forth research with regard to the legal definitions of money. They're going to talk about cash, gyro money, so the bank created money, and also cryptocurrencies and the legal definitions of all that. It's going to be interesting. Then Arne Feilstecker, the second chairman of Monetative, and me, we're going to talk about Vollgeld. Well, I'm going to talk about Vollgeld, and Arne is going to provide insights into a very efficient consensus mechanism for crypto or for distributed ledger technologies that can actually be used in a sovereign money system. Yeah, so that's a quick overview about the conference. 24th of November. I think it's going to be very, very interesting, and hopefully a lot of people will come. We have already quite a lot of people coming, and we aim at bankers and center bankers in Frankfurt, so to reach out to the mainstream. So.
Will that be recorded on video?
Yes, it will.
What language is it?
English. It's all in English.
That's sweet.
Exactly. Now Sweden. Swiss Vollgeld-Initiative. That's the third topic I quickly wanted to talk about. I mean, we've just had a session of our friend of the Swiss Vollgeld-Initiative. But what was interesting for us is that we read quite a few articles that claimed that the initiative was actually controlled by foreign NGOs, especially by us, by Monetative. And said, yeah, there's an international consortium, the IMMR, and especially Monetative is financing everything and all that. And it is completely false accusations. I mean, we did support it, but only with only a very limited amount of sum. I think it was in total like 6,000 euros. I mean, of course, we don't have money in Germany. Monetative doesn't have money. We are 100% dependent on those fees that our members are paying, and also, of course, donations. So we tried to raise donations, but actually we couldn't really support them a lot. Also, there was a problem with the legal side, so to say, because we as a foreign institutions are not allowed actually to finance and help to finance other organizations in other countries, right? Because we are a tax exempt NGO in Germany. We are gemeinwohlorientiert, so for the common good, so to say. But we can only spend our money inside of Germany and not outside. So it was quite hard for us to actually support the Swiss Initiative. However, I believe even though the Initiative was rejected, there was extremely good media coverage all around the world. I will put up a slide afterwards. And also there was a very great event in Zurich with international experts discussing this proposal, and actually I wanted to use this as the ideal event to connect with and to continue with when organizing the annual conference in November. This was the media coverage. So you see from Financial Times to Wall Street Journal to Economist, Reuters, Forbes, everybody was writing about it. Some of them were skeptical, others were quite pro the Folgerinitiative. Like we've heard, Financial Times with Martin Wolf, who was a very famous proponent of the initiative. And yeah, also here at Börsenzeitung, this is very, very good and very renowned newspaper in Germany. Top-Ökonom fordert Debatte über Geldsystem. This is like one of the top economists actually stating that we should argue about it. They were talking about William White. He's also so I think this was one of the best results of the referendum, because then mainstream media actually debated and actually described how the current money system works. And basically every article started, in the first abstract started with, did you know banks create money? And now we have this initiative that wants to change it. But then the first abstract was always like a short explanation of how the current money system works. And I think there was never ever something like this in history before. So this was also one of the arguments for me to actually work on such a big conference, to use this momentum and yeah, get along with that. And then the last point I quickly wanted to talk about is the e-Krona project, because I think this is the most interesting project we are actually facing right now, maybe in the world or only in Europe, I don't know. But the e-Krona project of the Swedish central bank actually proposes, Joseph Huber labels it Folgeld Light, or it could be a Folgeld Light, it depends on the design of it. So what they want to do is they want to provide a retail CBDC. So when reading the literature on central bank digital currency, you see that there are two different ways of setting it up. You can do either a wholesale CBDC or a retail CBDC. The wholesale digital currency would be basically central bank reserves put on distributed ledger if you want to use the technology or not, or widen the access to the central bank reserves. But what they are actually talking about, and this is one of the only central banks that is really working on that, is a retail CBDC. So it's actually a digital cash for non-banks, so for you and me. So we would actually get access to the central bank balance sheet. We could hold our money at the central bank, which would then be basically risk-free, because we don't have, then you wouldn't have liquidity risk, you wouldn't have the solvency risk, of course, yeah, and Gläubigerrisiko, Uli, how would you, Gläubigerrisiko? Credibility. Yeah, like credibility risk, yeah, because I mean, central banks can go bust. And their motivation is that the cash usage has been plummeting quite dramatically in Sweden. They have a very, very efficient system running there. It's called Swish. Swish is an application for smartphones, and more than 50%, like 60% of the daily transactions in low denominations are being done via this Swish system. And it's a payment provider, so it's the money is not deposited at banks, but this application, since it's only an in-house clearing in the Swish system, the transactions are settled in less than a second. So you type in the numbers on your smartphone, you have a Swish account, your client or the one you want to transfer the money to also has a Swish account, and type in the numbers and the name, and then you click send, and then it's already there. So I think technologies and the way of using technology and using a very efficient system is actually key to anything we want to tackle, because this is what counts. Nobody's interested if the money system is safe or not, if you hold the money at central banks or at commercial banks or at savers, at payment providers. Nobody's really interested in that. What they're interested in is how fast it goes, if it goes safe, and if it's really easy to use. So usability is the key. And they have that in Switzerland, in Sweden. But the central bank actually recognized that and said, they wrote it really, really clearly in their report. They said, what we see is now a transfer of the whole monetary system in the hands of private institutions. What we want to provide is a riskless means of exchange, and we do not want to have the monetary system under complete control of the private sector and commercial banks, and also the Swiss system. And therefore, we will provide a digital cash. So, one of the economists and representatives of that project is also going to talk at the conference, because I think this is actually to me, it's the most interesting project right now, because if it was designed correctly, we could actually have something like a Vollgeldsystem Light, sovereign money light, where you have the possibility to hold riskless money and sovereign money from the central bank. Of course, it depends on how it is created. If it is created only via the transaction from zero money, so bank money into CBDC, then the creation of money is still in the hand of the commercial banks. So it needs to be created by commercial banks when they grant loans, and then you can transfer it into central bank digital cash, just like it is right now with cash, with physical cash. Yeah? Because you can't get a loan in physical cash. You get a loan in bank credit and then change it into physical cash. And also, of course, if it is created free of debt. So if it was linked to citizens' dividend or whatever. So we're going to discuss about that. They are also going to issue a new report, I think this week or next week. So if you're interested in that, you can go to their website and find it there. Very, very interesting project right now. And so to wrap everything up, everything that I told will be represented at the conference. I hope to see anybody of you there. You're all invited. 24th of November, so it's in about 4 weeks. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And that was it for myself.
Thank you, Manuel. That was very interesting. So we're running a bit late today, but that's okay, because these two presentations I think were so interesting, and they were so apropos to what we're doing here in America, and it's a lot of synergies. So I was just happy to let it run, and so we'll probably be about a half an hour late in the schedule. The film from Sigurvin and Frosty, they have pre-recorded film, so we can show that at any time during the conference when we can make up some space. We can insert that, or even do it on Sunday if we run out of time on Saturday. But so we'll just leave out Sigurvin and Frosty's filmed message, and we'll carry on with Joe Bongiovanni after a coffee break. And also, Lucille would like to make an announcement just before the coffee. Oh, first, Manuel. Is there any pressing questions? Or because Manuel probably will be on a panel later on, I hope, so you can ask questions. I don't know where it's gone now. Okay, Lucille.